Think back to when you were a kid playing outside on a sunny day. If you hold a magnifying glass over a piece of dry wood and keep your hand moving, absolutely nothing happens. The sun's rays are powerful, but they are scattered. To actually start a fire, you have to hold the glass perfectly still and concentrate all of that energy onto one tiny, specific point. Human ambition works exactly the same way. You can have endless energy, high intelligence, and a desperate desire to succeed, but if you scatter that effort across a dozen different interests, your actual impact drops to zero. A highly successful person is rarely a superhuman genius. They are usually an average person who has simply mastered the physics of concentration. They pick a target, and they do not look away. To see how easily we violate this rule, imagine heading into the woods to hunt. You spot a rabbit. You draw your bow, lock your eyes on the target, and right as you prepare to release the arrow, a deer steps into the clearing. You lower your bow. A deer provides far more meat, so you let the rabbit go and pivot your attention. But as you track the deer, you spot something even larger, a stag. You abandon the deer and start sprinting after the stag. You spend the entire day engaged in an escalating cycle of abandonment, endlessly chasing bigger and bigger targets without ever actually taking a shot. By sunset, you are physically exhausted, mentally drained, and walking home with nothing. This is the exact moment the excuses start. You drag yourself through the front door and declare that the universe is against you. You tell yourself that you worked incredibly hard, but you just have terrible luck. But the lack of results has absolutely nothing to do with luck. The failure is entirely self-inflicted. You misdiagnosed a lack of focus as being a victim of circumstance. Scattered attention will bankrupt you every single time. The barrier to success is rarely an inability to hit the target. The actual problem is a complete lack of a target to begin with. If you ask most people what they are aiming at right now, they cannot give you a specific answer. Look at the legendary sprinter Milkha Singh. His career is a masterclass in how defining clear, tangible rewards can drive unparalleled physical output. His initial drive to run wasn't based on an abstract desire for glory. It was entirely physiological. He ran his first major race simply because crossing the finish line meant securing a guaranteed glass of milk. He attached his physical effort to an immediate, basic reward. Once that initial momentum was built, the target evolved. The motivation upgraded from a physical reward to a symbolic identity, earning the right to wear the national jacket of India. Then the ambition hardened into a strict, uncompromising metric. His coach handed him a number that demanded absolute precision. He had to cross the line in 45.9 seconds. Vague ambition was replaced by hard data. Finally, the goal expanded into a grand legacy. He aimed to perform at such an extreme level that the government would declare a national holiday in his name. Progressively scaling your targets like this creates a psychological pull. Instead of forcing yourself to work through sheer willpower, the sheer clarity of the goal drags you forward. But setting a massive goal instantly triggers resistance from your environment. High-status distractions will inevitably appear to pull you off track. When you inevitably stumble, you need a brutal internal correction mechanism. You have to be willing to stand in front of a mirror and snap yourself out of complacency, reminding yourself exactly why you started. You also have to insulate yourself against psychological discouragement. Right before a critical moment, someone, a competitor, a critic, or even an authority figure, will casually predict your failure. They will tell you that the race you are about to run will be your last. Most people shrink when they hear that. A highly focused mind weaponizes it. They take that negativity, bottle it up, and burn it as combustible fuel for the impending task. And to match an ever-expanding goal, your physical effort has to scale upward. If your daily training used to yield a single cup of sweat, your new standard demands you fill a bucket. You continually raise the baseline of what you consider a hard day's work. Maintaining focus is not a passive state. It requires actively defending your mind against intruders while ruthlessly multiplying your own output. When you protect your attention and constantly raise your internal standards, reaching the finish line ceases to be a question of if and becomes a matter of when. Hyperfocus forces a result. But true champions also realize that extreme concentration requires a rigid external structure. You need the humility to credit the mentors, the coaches, and the strict discipline, like the military, that forged your raw energy into a weapon. So look at the next year, or the next 5 years of your life. Can you identify one exact, explicitly defined objective you are aiming at? If you can't, you'll spend your life chasing every rabbit and beetle that crosses your path. Selecting a single target is the only reliable engine for escaping an average life. Lock in on it and let it pull you forward.